Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leverage Your Podcast show. And today we're going to talk about my favorite platform. Some people are still on the fence about it, but hopefully we'll convince you otherwise by the end of it. Because I have with me Wes Lemos with salesconnector.com, which is a super cool platform that actually helps you with prospecting, marketing, using LinkedIn. And it's actually powered by AI and things that I don't understand. And so I'm super excited to chat with you, Wes. Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here. It's fun to talk about these things.
Yeah. And LinkedIn, I think, is like it has changed quite a lot. And I think that people's mindset has changed a lot. But there are still some people that are resisting using LinkedIn, even though they're in business. So what do you say to those people that are like, I don't know about LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, it is such a powerful platform, and I'm definitely all in on LinkedIn. And I've seen so many times, especially businesses that think like, oh, my business doesn't work in LinkedIn. It's not a good place for me to go. Almost always, that's actually means that that's a good opportunity for you to go there because your competitors are thinking the same thing. At the end of the day, there's millions of people, probably like 60, 70% of Americans are on LinkedIn that are professionals. And so you can find them there and talk to them and build a relationship with them there almost easier than you can on the other platforms, as far as I know. So it comes down to a good strategy and a good approach. You can open up a lot of doors on LinkedIn. So I push everyone at least to strategize and think about it a bit more if they're on the fence.
Yeah, 100%. I almost find that there's less distractions. Like everything is about business. There's not as much personal, fluffy stuff. Like you can't even post a GIF. It's just, and you're not distracted with different features. Like Instagram for me drives me crazy. I don't know if it does for you, Wes, but it's like the stories, the reels, the feed, there's too many spots where LinkedIn, I find it super focused
Yeah.
and a place to have those really good conversations with prospects, peers. Um, yeah, I just find people are actually serious about having those conversations versus fluffy stuff.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah, most other platforms, they're kind of there with the intention of just sucking your time. And then they built it with the kind of a thing like if you're there for a long time, they can serve a lot of ads to you and they're making a lot of money that way. LinkedIn, I just, it's different. It's about your profession, it's about your career, it's about what you're trying to do for your business. And that's most of the discussion. That's how people show up on that platform. So it's not about like looking great in a bikini or something like that. It's different. It's
Yeah.
about, having a business that makes sense that people will resonate with. And those are the conversations you're going to generate inside of something like LinkedIn. There's so much opportunity there to leverage it better. But with everything, when you're going to like a networking event, if you're kind of going without too much intention, you're going to walk away without too much that you're going to get out of that. But if you're
Hmm.
going into LinkedIn with a good intention, with some good strategy, you really can put into it something good and get out of it something good too. And as opposed to just kind of going without any kind of intention, you might just spend a lot of time reading articles and it could become something more like an Instagram to you. But if you kind of know what you're trying to accomplish, you can make a plan that's going to head that direction for you. And you can usually accomplish that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just feel like it's, I don't know why, but people seem to be more open to have those conversations. And a lot of my conversations actually happen like one on one in the messaging. And of course, which is what we're going to be touching upon shortly because Sales Connector helps. But the first thing I want to ask you though is I just want to talk about the bio and
Yeah.
your LinkedIn profile in general, because really that's the first piece of real estate. That's the first place that people go. What advice would you give? What are some of your do's and don'ts?
I appreciate you asking. That's such an important part of LinkedIn. And sometimes it's neglected that people they have a bio that they made a long time ago, that they didn't put too much effort into it, and then they don't change it, and then they try to accomplish a lot of things, and it's not happening, the things that they're trying to accomplish. And it really comes down to they didn't put the effort to make themselves look good inside LinkedIn. We're a little privy to be able to manage like hundreds, close to thousands of LinkedIn accounts.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're seeing what works and doesn't work across the
Mm,
board. And that gives us kind of a good vantage point to know what to say or what to do for people. The trend that we've seen change probably from 2017, 18 to today is people want you to look well-rounded. And that's a trick that we talk to all of our clients about. So instead of just saying, I do this one thing for this one company and that's what I do, think back and kind of say like, hey, I'm an avid book reader. I actually I'm an evangelist for the Sacramento area. I am a multiple startup investor. A lot of things that are more well-rounded about who I am as a person.
Mm.
Adding that, especially to your headline, makes a big difference for them to engage with you and see you as not just a salesperson for one business, but you're actually somebody that has a lot of interests, that seems like a cool person to engage with, to talk to, and to learn from. That goes a long ways. And then also your banner background image actually makes a pretty big difference too in the process. We've A/B tested that with many, many accounts.
Ooh.
And the thing that we've came across with was banners that do show a little bit of your personality tend to actually perform the most. So if it's you, I don't know, just engaging, interacting with a group of people, like a diverse group of people or something like that, like it does make people see you as a real human,
Right.
that an interesting person to talk to. So personality-based background images tend to do the best. The second tier I put in that category are ones that are a little more social proof. A social proof image is like you on a stage, or
Right.
you engaging with somebody famous, something that kind of makes you look like, oh wow, that's the person I'd want to talk to too, since they're doing that. But funny enough, like you, maybe even with your family or your dog, will actually outperform a social proof image.
Really?
Yeah, for the most part. That's what we've seen based on our data. But it's not always, but in
Yeah.
general, like if I had to categorize which ones work better, location-based images are great too. So if you're in New York and you have some landscape from New York as your banner image, that works well. Um, but we steer away from being very corporate. Uh,
Yes. All about the logo and
yeah.
100%.
So those are some tips for everybody.
Yeah.
And a good picture goes a long ways too.
And are there any like, because there's a lot of different sections within the profile, which ones are more important than others?
So it's a little bit like a book. The cover makes such a difference of how many people buy that book. And so the things that I would prioritize, if you're only going to put 10 minutes into making your profile better, just start from the top of your profile. And then the top three things that people see, it's your headline, it's your banner, and it's your photo. Those are the three top main things. The next one underneath that is your about section.
Mhm.
And just trying to kind of make that a little bit more like well-versed, somebody who's done a lot, talk about yourself. Everybody's leveraging, AI these days. So write it once and then have AI iterate with you a few times to come up
Mhm.
with things. Even ask AI, I would say like, hey, add some icons to this, make it bullet formatted so it looks a little
Oh,
bit
right.
nicer. And so the formatting on that can make a pretty big difference for it to look better. And then it's your job section too is really important. That's a harder one to have general advice to an audience like this.
Yeah.
It's more because everybody's story is so different, the jobs that they've had. And we do offer, like in our strategy sessions, like just this kind of consulting that goes how to make your LinkedIn profile significantly better. But it really comes from top to bottom. Focus on the things that are top first, because that's what people will see quickly, and then go through the other things a little bit after that.
Perfect. Yeah, first impressions definitely matter, and you don't want to confuse everyone. You want to make sure that people understand who you are and what you do. But I like what you said about personalizing it a little bit more, because yeah, people connect with other people. It's not just, yes, it's business to business, but we're all human, and you either like someone or you don't. So you want to put that best leg forward, if you will. Now, let's talk about connections here, because obviously the name of the game is growing your profile so that you get more connections, get more followers. Um, for those that don't know, that are maybe new to LinkedIn, what would you say is the difference between connections and followers?
So a follower is one-sided. A connection is mutual. A connection
Great
is
way to say
somebody
it.
that connects with you and you connect back to them, and then therefore you guys are first-degree connections on LinkedIn. And as such, you're allowed to send them messages. They can send you messages. You guys have an established quote-unquote friendship on LinkedIn. And that's the most powerful thing you can have on LinkedIn is connections.
Hmm.
There's a small minority of people on LinkedIn that are after followers. And those are people usually that have a lot of content, that are just content producers. And people maybe look at your content, they like your content, they want your content to show up in their feed. They click follow, and therefore, whenever you make something new, it'll show up on their side. Um, and I know some people, like, anytime you see somebody that has more than 30,000 connections or followers, it's because they did something right in terms of the content space.
Mm.
But LinkedIn does cap your connections to 30,000.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So that you can have 30,000 first degree connections, and that's it. So once you hit that number, you're kind of, if you want to get other ones, you have to remove some of your old ones to kind of
Oh,
keep it
dang.
in that space. Yeah, that's where I'm struggling with that today. Like, that's where I'm at. I'm at
I'm not
30,000.
quite there yet, Wes.
But followers are neat, but it's a different game.
Yeah.
Followers are just like, if you're really, like, funny or make good videos or whatever the case, people might choose to follow you. But it's harder to convert from my opinion, a follower into revenue. You have to post content that converts, and that's a different game.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of has this mindset, hey, if I make a podcast, I'm going to make a lot of money, but it's not that easy.
No.
It takes a lot of effort. So I don't know that game too well. I do know the individual direct messaging game
Yeah.
that I understand really well.
So everyone gets DMs in LinkedIn and other platforms, but and some of it is cold outreach, people that I have never seen or heard of.
Yeah.
And, you know, there have been some where I'm like, okay, I'm going to engage in a conversation, a little back and forth, and some I've like connected with and chatted and had phone calls or what Zoom calls. And some of them I'm just like, nope, see ya.
Yeah.
So clearly there is a right and a wrong way. So
Yeah.
what is your approach with Sales Connector and your team?
Yeah. We emphasize very heavy the relationship first focus on all kind of connections on LinkedIn, all prospecting. It really comes down to there's humans, and we treat them like in the best way possible, as we would just a real person you're bumping into at a networking event or on the street or something like that. I think we all are inundated with being pitched at,
Hmm.
or someone reaching out saying, hey, here's a great article that I published. I think you'd benefit from reading it. Go for it. Like, there's content overload today. There's content everywhere, and there's people pitching us things all the time. If you can change that, and that's what we try to do with our clients, and that's what we try to teach and preach, and this is what I do. If I can ask a question specifically about you that makes me show that I'm interested in you, and
Right.
that's kind of how I start the conversation. Like, oh, no way, it looks like you have two businesses, one in Chicago and one in New York. How do you manage that? That kind of question, it's going to get you to be probably pretty excited. Oh, wait a minute, they took a little bit of time to see this, and they're asking about me. A lot of people, and I fall in this, most of us do too. We do have an ego that's kind of big, and if you're stroking that when you ask a question, people like to talk about themselves,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I try to encourage us to do early on. Ask questions, get to know the other person first. Don't worry about talking about yourself too much early on. Focus on getting the other person to share, show them that you're interested in them, get them to be engaged. And that's kind of the flow. Our system that we built, for our clients, it's fun. We've tapped into AI, and we've trained it to be able to gauge every incoming conversation. It puts it in 1 to 12 different categories.
Hmm.
And it's something, it makes it color coordinates all your conversations on LinkedIn to show you which status it's in based on the AI reading that whole conversation thread. There's a friendly stage is usually where things start. And then they go to an engaged stage, and then they go to an interested stage, and then they go to kind of, let's try to get off of LinkedIn into a meeting. That's the kind of the healthy flow. And then there's
Yeah.
other, like, not interested, or they're trying to send you a referral, or they're pitching you on service. So our software identifies all those.
Nice.
We coach all of our clients, and we kind of train them when they're friendly. This is not the time to pitch anything to them. This is
No.
not the time to, like, try to tell them about, the 10 things you can do for them. It's a time just to ask them, like, a short, good question that shows that you care about them. And that's the flow from interested. Then they probably will move to engaged. Engaged is where they start talking about themselves more. And then you want to stay in the engaged stage for a while. And then there's an opportunity to see if there's any overlap of services that you do and that they're interested in. So I might say things very high level, like, hey, like, do you guys utilize any other SaaS platforms today that you like? Or are you, how is marketing going for your business? Or do you have any growth plans for 2025? Those are all questions that they answer affirmative to those. I know that there's a little bit of an interest that overlaps between what I do and what they're into.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can kind of move to saying, you know what, why don't we just have a 15-minute discovery call or a quick virtual cup of coffee in the next couple of weeks? I'd love to learn even more about what you're doing, see if there's anything we can do to collaborate or add synergies to each other. And I have like an 80% success rate of going from engaged to booking a meeting.
Wow.
It's a flow that we've taught and we've trained people on many times, and our software helps you do that too in the end.
Are there certain, like, you know how they say people in general, there's like, you have to have 7 touch points in order for them to like finally take an action.
Yeah.
Is there a rule in this case as well?
The number let's say if we average it out, it's about 5 touch points on
Yeah.
LinkedIn where we kind of are able to book a meeting with somebody. And 5 touch points being a back and forth touch point. That's because sometimes people, you knock on their door 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they start the conversation. That's 1 touch point once they respond to you. And then at that point, it's about 4 more before you get the meeting with them. That's what we've seen. It does seem kind of tedious. The average person doesn't want to go down this approach because they go like, oh, that's overwhelming. Like, do I really have to talk to the person 5 times before I get a meeting? You don't have to, but your odds drop significantly if that's the case, And I mean, I have stories for days. This has been
I'm sure.
Yeah, I've done it enough for 5 years at this point, that it's been so fun, and there's so many stories and so many great friendships that'll last for the rest of my life that I built because of this method, because of this is how I've been doing things for the last 5 years. And not just me, but my clients, have so many big wins at this point. And it's this shift saying, wait a minute, I'm not really, if I focus more on building this relationship, I can get this outcome, and it's even bigger than what I expected versus if I walk in specifically trying to sell this one thing to them.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
a different, yeah.
So how do you find who your prospects are in the first place? Because I mean, there's one thing to communicate, but you got to take it a step back and find those people in the first place.
So we're big advocates of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's their LinkedIn premier product. And it's something that we've also been using heavily for 5 years. We have pretty big enterprise license with them. But inside of Navigator, there's 34 search criteria under just the lead tab. And then there's an account tab that also has a whole bunch in there. We try to, for everybody, just teach them how to leverage what LinkedIn lets you do to come up with that list, that target list of people you want to talk to. But even if you take it a step back, it's fun to use creative strategy for people that you're targeting. So maybe if you're wanting to talk to small business owners, right? Instead of just having one campaign or one approach that's just going for small business owners, maybe you're going to go after bookkeepers, and maybe you can go after, accountants. Maybe you can go after, somebody in the legal space that their client list is the same as yours.
Yeah.
And you can make those strategic partnerships. Oftentimes on LinkedIn, like, we recommend people having multiple strategies going on at any given time, like, because if you went just for small businesses and that's all you did, and it may or may not get the ROI that you're looking for. But if you're trying some of these other methods at the same time, and one of them tends to be wildly successful, you're onto something. Oftentimes people like finding investors, finding employees, finding strategic partners. There's dozens of reasons why to use LinkedIn and reach out more people. And sometimes we get stuck on, this is the only reason why I want to reach out to people. But if you step back and you talk a little bit more, oftentimes you can identify like other values they could get from the platform and other approaches that would make sense for them to do. And that's fun for me to do. And that's what we've been doing for 5 years, like I said.
Yeah. Awesome. So when you find new potential prospects, should you follow them, connect with them, like their content? Like, are there steps that you should do before you reach out at all?
So those are all possibilities. And there's a lot of things, like I just encourage every person to try things, and as best you can kind of quantify and test your metrics at the end of the day. Because like some people might say like, oh, I always like going into people's profiles and commenting on one of their past posts before I send the connection request.
Hmm.
And that might be their personality. But the truth is, if they measured that for like a week of doing it that way versus not doing that the way, I'd be curious to know which way works better for them.
True enough.
Because you're putting a lot of effort into this and it's taking a lot of your time, and it's just good to quantify it. Because sometimes, yeah, just in the marketing world, you kind of do what you think is great, but it's really good to quantify it. Is it really making a difference or not for you? The things that matter the most that I've seen to our clients, and this is specific with our approach, one, that profile looking great is huge. Okay. And you can go a long ways. Like I like using this as a reference point. My oldest son, when he was 16, um, we made a LinkedIn profile for him. And I did use a little bit of AI to give him a little bit of a beard, just to kind of help a little bit. So he looked not quite as young as, but with no job history, with nothing else, but just a very kind of just a friendly looking profile saying like, I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. I'm an avid learner. I enjoy connecting with people. That's his whole headline, like, um, uh, is trying to learn more. I'm an avid gym goer, an adventure seeker. Like those things don't mean much, but he was connecting at almost over a 50% connection acceptance rate at that
Wow.
point. And the conversations he were generating were going really well. And his ability to book meetings for my sales team was really high. And so having a good LinkedIn profile that kind of makes people interested and say, hey, you look like somebody I would want to spend some time talking
Right.
to. Um, on the search and LinkedIn, if you're using Navigator, the two switches that are kind of like magic for us is going after your second degree connections.
Mm,
And then there's a switch you can say the people that are active on LinkedIn, which is people that have posted recently on LinkedIn. Um, and the third kind of philosophy that I have usually when you're pulling up a search, and these are all the secrets that we work with our clients on. LinkedIn has this thing that I call like cream of the crop methodology. So if I'm pulling, I don't know, owners of pizza restaurants in my own city, there might be 200 of them, right? And if I try to reach out to those 200 people, my success rate honestly is going to be really low. It's just
mm,
because odds are pizza restaurant owners in my city aren't using LinkedIn all that often. And
right.
and I'm just going to be wasting connection requests for people that are unresponsive on LinkedIn. Uh,
Right. That makes sense.
if I looked at, let's say, nationwide, maybe just owners of restaurants, and I find the ones who posted in the last month who are also connected to somebody I know, and let's say that number comes out to be 500,000, we only are going to target the first 1,000 anyways on that list. LinkedIn has this algorithm where it's going to put the first 1,000 people on that list are going to be the ones that it knows are the ones that are most engaged inside their platform.
Mm,
I compare it to like apples at a grocery store. If they have a big basket of 1,000 apples and they put 10 in the front, they're going to hand select the 10 to show
yeah.
you where
Yeah.
apples. LinkedIn does that one. So I always like a big search and just pulling the front part of that search to kind of go after,
Love that.
because the ones that are in the front of the search, like outside of even using the search criteria that you like, it's going to favor the people that it knows are probably most likely to interact with you. So
Yeah.
a big search, second degree connections, and who posted on LinkedIn, you're gonna have good results if your profile looks good too. You like I typically get, I mean, I have clients that get 55% connection acceptance rates, and they can get an 80% conversation rate with the people once they connect to them too.
Yeah. That's great. Now, I
Yeah.
know we're short on time, but I want to make sure people understand quickly what Sales Connector can do for them to
Yeah.
grow their podcast, to grow their business, and obviously how they can find out more about it.
Thanks for all the questions. It's been really fun kind of going through this with you. I get
Yeah.
excited about it. Um, and LinkedIn, you can do it manually. There's a lot of ways to get it done, and I'm encouraging every person to do it that way. Sales Connector does offer, like, we have a team that helps you kind of to go through strategy sessions. We teach you all these things. We help you, maximize your copywriting inside the platform. And we do have a software that kind of will organize all of your LinkedIn connections,
Sweet.
yeah. And
And
it's
collects
just a real,
data too. You have data on the back end and analytics and all that good stuff.
yeah. And at any given point too, now with AI too, if you don't know what to say at any given time, you just press a button. It reads through the whole conversation thread. It knows your personality type that you put in there,
Mm,
and it reads their profile completely. and it knows how to leverage asking great questions and how to push conversations forward using the methodology that we talked about.
Wow.
It's fun. So salesconnector.com is probably the best thing to do there. You can kind of read a little bit about it. But booking a demo, getting myself
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
somebody on my team just to kind of talk to you about it for a while is something that I think it's worthwhile to do. Like even if you don't sign up, that's not the point, but learning about what can be done and
Yeah.
how it can be leveraged sometimes is a game changer for most people that they didn't even know that they could do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. If a tool can help them get more leads, prospects, eyeballs on their podcast, whatever it may be, more sales calls, then you're going to propel your business and your podcast that much faster.
Absolutely. I'm behind that 100%.
Yeah. I so appreciate you. I know we've had chatted a few times and you're such a great personality. You're so warm and authentic. And yeah, I'm excited about the growth of your business and helping other people grow theirs.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, looking forward to kind of helping people out and maybe, and I don't know, some other time coming back and kind of telling you more about things that are going on in the process too.
Perfect. All right, folks. I hope that helps you understand LinkedIn a little bit more, what you can do to grow your podcast and your business using LinkedIn and obviously Sales Connector. So until next week, I will see you. And I hope you enjoyed that episode of Leverage Your Podcast Show.
Thank you.